If you could hear from anyone at the DNC right now, you'd want it to be Chair Ken Martin, right? Well, I don't have Ken, but I do have the next best thing. I got a chance to talk with Tim Wegener, who is on the board of the Finance Committee. And given what was in that New York Times article, that's exactly who you want to hear from. So sit back, relax, and get ready to have a whole lot of your questions answered about the DNC. And who knows, maybe after this interview, you'll even want to donate. Hi, please introduce yourself because I am sure you are a new face to my entire audience.
Yep, I'm sure that I am, and I appreciate you having me today. My name's Tim Wegener, and I am a member of the DNC's National Finance Committee.
Wonderful. You are exactly who everyone wants to hear from. Can you start with explaining where the money is going? A lot of people are saying the money's going to hurting progressives, and I know that's not what's actually the case.
No, not at all. Ken Martin was elected with a vision for how the party had to change over the next 5 to 10 years. If you step back a little bit, going back to the Obama years, they started a program called Organizing for America. And that was really, in many ways, it tried to replace the state party system. And it decimated the state parties at the time. And now Organizing for America is all gone. And Ken's plan is to rebuild state parties. That's where the money's going. There's 57 state and territory parties. Roughly 40 plus of those institutions have chairmen or chairwomen who are completely volunteers. They don't get paid. Yeah, shocking. Like, how can a state party not, the chairman of Texas doesn't get paid?
Wow.
And so it's hard to imagine how you could rebuild the party from the ground up, which is what Ken's plan is, without investing in state parties. That's what he's doing. That's the plan that Ken laid out. And I'll just add to it here. The reason Ken laid that plan out, and that's what got him elected, was he looked forward. Ken's always planned ahead. That's how we've had success in Minnesota, and that's his thing. And so when you look at the 2030 census that's coming our way, in the old days, we talk about the blue wall, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. If we could win the blue wall, we would have enough electoral votes to win the presidency. Well, with the population changes that are coming after 2030, the blue wall will not be enough to win the presidency because electoral votes are going to move to Texas, Arizona, North Carolina, Florida. Ken's trying to get ahead of it by saying, look, state parties need to be invested in, and they need to be invested everywhere because the changes that are coming mean either we change with it or we end up a minority party forever.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I knew that, but I didn't know that. Like, that is information that I was aware of, but hearing it laid out like that, wow. There are a lot of people in a lot of states, red states especially, that feel like they're being ignored by the DNC. And I know that that's not what Ken's doing, but how can you tell them that he's not abandoning the red states and that, like, I hear people in Oklahoma being like, the Democrats have never cared about me. People in Ohio saying the Democrats have never cared about me. What is he doing about those states that they really feel, oh, these are too red for them, for the DNC to ever care about?
Yeah, that's not the case anymore. In fact, the investment that the DNC makes on a monthly basis into each and every state party, red states get a little more money than the blue states because we know that we've got to catch up. Mississippi is a great example. We're putting more money into Mississippi than we are, say, into Georgia because, I mean, candidly, Mississippi's been neglected for so long. And so now they've been able to add staff. They're ready to actually, as we look at 26 and 28, the elections, we're going to see some more Democrats get elected in a state like Mississippi because the DNC is investing in it. That same thing happening all over the country. Ken's mantra is to invest everywhere to win anywhere. I know it's a little corny, but that's the truth. And so, no, the money's getting spent more directly into red states than it is even into blue states.
And what do you say to people who are like, well, it's not enough money? How is that enough money to do anything? What are the tangible things that are being done in these states with that funding?
Yeah, no, it's not enough. So please pull out your checkbook, pull out your credit card, and donate more to the DNC. I'm doing it. I'd encourage all of you to do it. So what it is it's building staff and resources. The number one way that we're going to turn around the Democratic brand and that we are turning around the Democratic brand is by listening to voters. It's not telling them what to do. It's not showing up on their doorstep 4 weeks before an election in a transactional way and saying, please vote for our candidate, and then we leave for 4 years. That's not how we do it. We have to build staff that survives through an election cycle. Because the other thing that we've always historically done as Democrats is we ramp up the staff right before an election. And then the day after the election, everybody gets fired and they go away for 2 or 4 years. And so we lose all of those resources. We lose that expertise. And so what we're doing is we're building the resources, we're building the expertise on the ground in these states so that come November 4th, the day after the election, people are still able to be employed at the state level and keep building those relationships with voters for the next election and not go away like we have previously.
Yeah, and I'd also argue that there are elections every single Tuesday, which is like one of my mantras. When we lose leadership roles in those field organizers, there's no one to be there for those smaller elections, which means Republicans can come in and take control pretty easily.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things I get to do in addition to my work on the finance committee is I've had the opportunity to work some of the other state parties. Here's a great example. Florida, just a few years ago, each municipality in Florida can set their own election date. So it can be a Tuesday, can be a Thursday, can be a Saturday, any day that they want. And there's something like 400 different voting municipalities in Florida. Well, in the olden days, before the new chair got into Florida, they didn't even have a way to track. The Democratic Party did not have a way to track which elections were happening where in Florida.
That doesn't
To
surprise
your
me at all.
right. So when you think about how are we going to win back Florida, we're going to win it from the ground up, right? So now the Florida Democratic Party, because they have the resources, because they're raising money, because they're being active, they're out there. They know when all the elections are. They know who the candidates are. And now they're winning elections that they hadn't been winning at the local level for
Yeah.
decades. That's how we build up back to winning, states like Florida. It doesn't happen overnight. And that's the other thing that's happening right now is I think a lot of people are like, well, I want to see results right now. Well,
Right.
that's not how it works. These states have been neglected for decades. It's going to take some time to build them back up.
And what do you say to blue states that are like, okay, but I'm now worried about my state? I live in California. I see this and I'm like, are we going to stay blue? What's happening here? So, what are you doing to not just make red states less red, but also keep blue states blue?
Yeah, so the money that is being sent to the different states is being sent to the blue states as well so that they can beef up their staff, which they need to do because even though they're blue states, I mean, it's the same thing. There's chairmen and women that aren't being paid, there's staff that has gone unhired. So now that's happening in blue states as well, first and foremost. And the other thing that's happening is, and I've been involved in this project, is we put together a clearinghouse for all of the different state parties to share what's working and what's not working. Yeah, we do it on a monthly call and we talk about, this is what works here. Like, for example, a few months ago, we had the chairwoman from Idaho. When she became chair several years ago in Idaho, they were raising $500,000 a year. That's it. Today, they're raising more than $3 million a year. So she got on and she explained what she did, how she did it, what the program was. That's applicable to blue states and red states, right? Like no one says we have too much money. No one says we have too many volunteers. So we're out there trying to exchange these ideas back and forth so that states can pick and choose, hey, this will work for us, this maybe won't, but everybody gets better.
Okay, so why am I just hearing about this now? Why are these things that aren't being publicized anywhere else?
That's a great question. I'm just going to say it. This is my personal opinion. There are, and I think it came through loud and clear in the New York Times article that was out recently. There are employees inside the DNC that are actively sabotaging the efforts that Ken and his team are trying to do. I think that's part of it. I got to hear Ken lay out his plan in detail about 18 months ago at a National Finance Committee meeting. I would encourage him to get out there and lay out that plan that he gave us. Keep doing it again. I think people need to be reminded of it. That's really the best answer I can give you. I think he's fighting a lot of fights, some of which he shouldn't be fighting. Staff should not be doing what they're doing and stabbing him in the back. And some of it is, you just get caught up in what's going on. But I would love to see him get out there and talk about it the way he talked about it with us 18 months ago.
Am I right in saying that he is basically doing all the change that people want to see, but they are falling for someone saying that he's not creating change at all? Like, it seems like the two messages are completely in opposition to each other because I hear what
Yep.
Ken's doing and I'm like, that's exactly what everyone wants to hear. And then they're like, and Ken should go and we should replace him with anyone who wants to keep the status quo. And I'm like, isn't that the opposite of what you're interested in?
Yeah, this is what I go back to. This is a very well coordinated attack on Ken. After they get done punching Ken, they want to talk about how wonderful Ben Wickler is, as an example. And I'm not here to pick on Ben. Ben did a very good job in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
The Wisdems, came from nothing back up. But Ben was the status quo candidate in the race for DNC chair last time. Ben didn't have a 10-year plan. Ben didn't want to talk about how we were going to improve the state parties. I think Ben was focused on the 2028 presidential election like we always have.
Yeah.
Every,
Wisconsin, that's exactly what you need to do because Wisconsin needs
yep,
that focus.
exactly. Ken's whole plan that he ran on and that he won on was get the consultants out of there,
Right.
get the media advisors out of there. These are people that have made a living. I mean, good God, they've made an annuity out of being a media advisor to the DNC. He wanted to get the DNC out of Washington and back into the state parties, which is what he's done. He wanted to invest in new technology. Everybody wants to criticize him over the after action report that was poorly done, and there was a lot of back and forth on that. But what came out of that was this thing called the DNC playbook. And if you haven't seen the DNC playbook, go to
Gorgeous.
the Yes, all of that investment that is talked about in there is part of Ken's plan to change the status quo as we go forward. These folks that want to attack Ken, they've got friends in the media who don't understand this and just regurgitate what's happening or what they want them to hear, I should say. And so the media falls for it. There's no way these reporters are asking questions on both sides. They're just getting it from one side and printing it and trying to make Ken look like he's the status quo guy when it's the exact opposite.
Are there any journalists that you've seen that do have a good handle on it, or people that others should follow and make sure to hear their point of view?
Yeah, so there's a couple. Rachel, it's either Bytkofer or Bitkofer,
Oh, yeah, I know
BIT.
her.
I think she's got a good grasp on it. I haven't watched a lot of MS Now lately, but apparently there was a segment recently that Simone Sanders and Michael Steele had on where they were like trying to explain it for real. Obviously, your content, everybody should read and watch your content. And I would say look to the state parties and what they're saying.
Mm.
That's the other thing that everybody's ignoring. Like North Carolina's got this weekly content package they put out that anyone can sign up for. It's great. And so these are all of the ways to work around some of these national, reporters that just want to, it's a game to them. They want clicks. And so they write it the way they write it.
It's sports. It's a fun thing to watch on TV and wear a t-shirt of rather than something that affects our lives and if we live or die.
It is. And you raise a very good point. I've done a lot of work over the last couple of years. We don't need to get into all of that, but I view Donald Trump and MAGA as an existential threat to America. America hasn't been in this much peril, in my view, since the Civil War, since the winter of 1860. I think folks like us, well, I shouldn't include you. I don't know if you're actually a registered Democrat or not, but I
I'm
assume
a
so.
registered Democrat.
Okay.
I have a shirt that says I'm a Democrat because I think and because I care that I've had since I was like 8.
Love it. I think it's up to us to push back on these Democrats that seem to think like it's okay. Like
Yeah.
it's all good. Status quo is just fine because I'm getting mine and I don't need to worry about anybody else. And that's part of what's happening here. I look at these anonymous leaks. I look at folks like the PodSave bros who have been hugely critical of Ken.
Yeah.
That's great. You guys can sit there in your nice houses in LA and rake in the money, I guess. But these are the folks that are actually doing the work, Ken and his team, and crapping on them isn't helping anybody. And I just don't understand that in the world that we're in, how these folks can claim to be Democrats, but at the same time want to just tear down everything that we're trying to do.
And I think it's also easy for those people to do it because Ken is a white man and then not look at the Malcolm Kenyatta and Shasti Conrad and Artie Blanco and like how many people are behind the scenes. I mean, I know that it was a Black woman who created the playbook. And that was one of the first things that Shasti told me was, please don't leave out that Sheila created this. Because we need to show how multi-racial, multicultural, multi-thought process and values that the Democratic Party is to come together to create what it is right now.
No question about it. I mean, again, if you take the time to flip through that playbook, you will see that it is not geared for any one segment, any one group of people. It is about building a coalition as big and as broad as it can be.
Okay, so is there any truth to any of the things that are in that article? Like the fact that the party is asking vendors not to sell bills until after the midterms, therefore it means that they have no money, or how the money that is in cash on hand is significantly less and not enough for us to fight in November.
Yeah, there's so much misinformation about all of this going on out there. As far as what was in the New York Times article, I come out of a business career. So I'm used to asking suppliers for credit terms and for days out, before you have to pay a bill. That's pretty normal. It is not normal for any organization, especially one as large as the DNC, to get a bill and then be like, oh, I'm going to pay this tomorrow. Normal businesses, 60 to 90 days before you pay a bill is completely normal. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, cash on hand. Yeah, look, the Trump PAC has lots of money. There's no doubt about it because the billionaires and the tech bros and all those guys want to support them. And I think we all know why. Again, this is part of Ken's plan. So we've had record fundraising over the first 18 months of his term. It's been record fundraising in terms of relative to the last cycle that you could compare this to, which is 2017 and 2018.
I'm going to ask you to explain that too.
Yep. So 2017 and 2018, Democrats were in the minority. There's a Republican president and Republican Congress. 2025 and 2026, Republican president, Republican Congress. Apples to apples. The party in control of the presidency usually almost always outraises the party that's out of power. And so you don't want to compare this year to 2022, for example, where we had a Democratic president and we had a full Democratic Congress as well. So that's apples and oranges. So when you compare to 2018, we've doubled fundraising. We have more large donors. We have more grassroots donors. The interesting thing about a lot of these donors, particularly the grassroots donors, they're willing to fund monthly, whether it's $5 a month, $15 a month, whatever. Well, when you've got donors who are telling you, I'm donating on a regular basis, you can start to plan ahead because you can count on that money. That's what has been happening inside of the DNC is Ken and his team, they've raised record amounts of money and they know what's coming in over the next 6 to 12 months. And so they feel comfortable pushing that money out to the state parties.
Okay.
But back to cash on hand for a second. It's not like we don't have zero cash. The DNC at the end of June was sitting on something like $15 million in cash. Okay. That got left out of all of the articles because because they wanted to focus on the fact that there was like 17 or 18 million dollars of debt. And so net we're 2 million in debt. Well, when you've got $8+ million a month rolling in on your donations and on your contributions, and you know what your expenses are, it's okay to have some debt like that. It's not a big deal. It's manageable. If they wanted to pay that debt off this month between what they had on hand and what's coming in terms of donations, they could do that. But and I know I get ramped up about this, Ariella, but
so do I.
The reason we have the debt that we have is because I'm going to take everybody back to last fall. New Jersey and Virginia had governor's races. And as we were rolling out of the summer into the fall, you might remember this, all of the Democrats got very worried that we weren't going to win either race. All of a sudden, the polls were tightening and maybe these candidates weren't, everybody doing the worrying that they always do. The DNC came into both of those races with resources, i.e. money, and people to help make sure that those campaigns did what we needed them to do. And what happened at the end of the day after the DNC came in? They both outperformed, right? They both won by like 15 points and no one was expecting that. That's because of the investment the DNC made. That's where the debt came from. And you're never going to convince me, if you want to argue with me, that taking that debt on to win those two races wasn't the right decision. It was.
Okay, that's very clarifying. You also brought up two new questions for me. Question one is, how do you explain to people who are like, I am not donating to Democrats, to the DNC, because of all the emails and texts? I'm only using Oath because they target it. The DNC is useless. The DNC is a waste of time. They aren't doing anything. We don't need them anymore. They are obsolete. Because that's the biggest argument that I'm seeing right now across all of social media.
Yeah, so the reason I'm involved in the DNC as much as I am and involved in state parties is because I'll go back to what I said earlier. Donald Trump and MAGA are an existential threat to the United States of America. The largest organization in place today fighting the fascism of the Trump regime is the Democratic Party. I don't want to have to go build another infrastructure. It takes a lot of money and a lot of time. I want to use the infrastructure that's there already. That's my biggest answer as to why should I invest in the Democratic Party. Look, the texts and emails, I got to tell you, as a finance committee member and a large donor, I get just as many as everybody else does, and they piss me off just like everybody else does. Here's what I tell you. 75% of them have nothing to do with the DNC.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So here's what the DNC's done. The DNC has gone to Act Blue and said, enough with the scam packs, because there's a lot of scam packs that are doing this too. And basically used our clout as the largest customer of Act Blue to get them to start enforcing their own rules. Has it eradicated the problem? No. But we're at least trying to work on it and trying to make it a little better experience for everybody.
Is there anything we can do to pressure them more to stop? I know people saying I'm not going to donate to the DNC because of Act Blue is not a good solution, but is there a solution of something we can say that will make Act Blue act?
Yes, because I always believe that when the customers start raising hell, then companies start to listen. And so, yes, I think we should be reaching out to Act Blue, whether it's by email, social media, telephone, whatever, and telling them enough's enough.
Maybe the
Yeah.
arguments used against Ken could be used against Act Blue instead.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, look, Ken recognizes it. The DNC recognizes it. It's a huge problem. And we've got to stop, the party is no longer treating donors like an ATM. If you've noticed, this is the other thing I'd say, you've received more emails from the DNC lately that aren't asking for money, if you've been paying attention. And so I would encourage
Only to the
everybody to do.
DNC. This doesn't mean like if you got an email from Emily's List or if you got an email from the Black Congressional Caucus or if you got an email from like any, that's not what we're talking about. Those are
No,
different organizations.
correct. Only the DNC. They've been much more informative. They've been much more partner-like. We're continuing to try to do that as well.
Is there anything that I get so frustrated. I'm like, but Ken is doing all these things. Why do you still have this issue with him? Is there anything that maybe we don't know about that he is doing that could turn that around for people? That people are like, oh, he's actually doing that, or that's a real thing, or something like that?
Yeah, look, they need a comm strategy. And I don't mean to like narrow it down to just like better comms, blah, blah, blah. But there is so much good stuff happening inside the DNC that we are building in anticipation of 28, not just 26, not just 28, but beyond.
Yeah.
They need to tell a better story. It goes back to there's a whole cadre of people inside the DNC that shouldn't be there. I'm just, again, this one guy's opinion, but they're not building a strategy to win or to tell that story. They've had a year and a half to build that strategy and it hasn't happened. So I think that's the biggest thing right now is if he would just go out there, be authentic like he always is, and just lay out, here's what I'm doing, here's why I'm doing it, here's the metrics. And if you want to fight with me, let's do it after November 3rd. And let's see what results we get. Because if we win the House and win the Senate, are these same people going to start finally acknowledging what Ken and the DNC are doing? Or are they going to sit there and say, oh, well, we did it to spite them? Well, if you're going to say that, you're never going to say anything good about someone. And so why do we even bother listening?
I hear from both sides. I hear from the moderates and I hear from the ultra progressives. I hear from the moderates. The DNC isn't supporting Jews anymore. The DNC is now working with the DSA. And then on the other side, I hear from progressives, the DNC is not working with the DSA. The DSA is trying to obliterate the DNC. Look at all the ways that they haven't supported them. They go back to not endorsing Mamdani immediately because we don't endorse in the primaries, but they don't get that. I guess, what do you say to each side? Or how would you convince them that the DNC is where we need to be respecting and giving our funds?
That sort of viewpoint's just wrong. We're not picking one or the other. Some evidence of that. Like you said, we're not getting involved in primaries. We're not picking one or the other. We're letting the voters in the state.
I have one question about that because
No, I know.
Before the primary was over, the DNC said that Graham Plattner won. What went on there?
So I can't tell you what went on to make them say that, but here's what I would say is at the time that happened, we'd already seen Janet Mills drop out.
Right.
We saw Graham Plattner polling in the 70s or 80s, and his nearest competitors were polling in the single digits. So did we technically do what we said we weren't going to do and endorse before the primary was over? Technically, yes. But practically speaking, at that moment in time, before we knew all of the stuff about Graham Plattner, when there's one candidate at 75% and the next one's at 5%, do we really need to wait?
Okay.
I don't know. People can argue that point. I don't think we needed to wait, but that's just me.
I just had to ask because I've been getting a lot of comments about that.
Oh, I know. I'm sure it would have been easier if we had just stayed away. But then honestly, people would have been bitching about the DNC not getting
Right.
involved. Look, it's a blowout. He's going to win. Don't you want to win the Senate? I mean, damned if you do and damned if you don't. That's sort of my view. So back to the DSA versus moderate or whatever. If you don't think that in Minnesota there's a DSA and a moderate and everything in between, the answer is there is. There's a very strong DSA movement in Minnesota, in Minneapolis. We don't win by subtracting, we win by adding. That was Ken's viewpoint in Minnesota when he was the chair. That's Ken's viewpoint at the DNC as chair. We're not here to say no to the DSA or no to moderates or no to Jewish coalition or no to a Muslim no, that's not us. Yeah, it gets messy at times and we might fight and argue like siblings do, but we're not picking one or the other. After Mamdani won the primary, Ken was right there congratulating him and doing what we needed to do for him to win. Just like, to be perfectly honest, I look at like Warnock and Ossoff in Georgia. Once they won, and we're doing what we can there as well. They're more moderate, or Talarico in Texas, right?
Yeah.
I can give you all these examples, but the point is, no, 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 no. We're not picking sides. We're simply here to make sure that the party, which is the people, is heard from and that their wishes are what happened on election day.
So if you had to describe the DNC in like an elevator pitch of like why the DNC is not the DCCC, why the DNC is not the DSCC, what we can say so that it's the DNC is the DNC and not all these other groups that people attribute to the DNC, what would that pitch be?
Yep, the DNC is here to be the nationwide builder of infrastructure for the entire party. That's what I would say. The DCCC, they're there to elect candidates to Congress, and that's it. The DSCC, they're there to elect candidates to the Senate, and that's it. The DGA, governors, that's it. The DNC is for everything else, to be perfectly honest with you. That's why I say nationwide infrastructure to elect Democrats all over the country. That's what we're here for. That's what the party's here for.
All right. I think I have everything. I'm sure I'll come up with like 20,000 questions after because you're just so good at this. And I am so wanting more knowledge and to know everything that's going on because I'm so impressed with you guys. I mean, everyone says like, you're a shill for the DNC. I'm like, I wish I was. I wish I was their spokesperson. I'm just really impressed with everything they're doing. And so I'm glad that I was able to chat with you and gives people a taste of what's happening behind the scenes. And hopefully it makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy to come back and answer more questions too. We need to get the message out. I'm just one, trust me, the National Finance Committee is full of members, lots of people. I'm just one person, but we need to get the message out. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. There's lots of good things going on and people need to understand that. And so, don't give in to the negativity. Don't give in to the doomerism. I'm with you. I'm tired of the doomerism. You know what? You want to criticize, go sign up for a door knock shift. That's my response to folks these days. Please put that energy into something positive for us.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. I hope it makes a difference. And maybe next time we'll do a live or something where I'll have all the questions from people who I'm sure have a problem with this because, of course, people are going to have a problem.
Yep. Hey, I'd love to do it. That sounds great.
All right. Thank you so much, Tim.
Thanks, Ariel.